Marc Majers is an author and a lead user experience researcher at Progressive Insurance. In addition to holding a master's degree in information architecture and knowledge management with an emphasis in user experience design, he is a certified usability analyst through Human Factors International and UX certified from Nielsen Norman Group. His skills range from user research, interaction design, digital strategy, conversion rate optimization, and usability testing. He is a board member of the UXPA Cleveland and Better World Day. More information can be found about Marc at marcm.com, or Marc with a C, by the way, .com. So thank you and welcome to the stage, Marc Majers.
Thank you very much, Darren. Excited to be here today. And I want everybody right now just to close your eyes for a moment. I know you just came back from your break, but just for a second, I want you to close your eyes and think about the last time that you were inspired. It could have been today. Maybe it was last week. Maybe it was last year. Inspiration is all around us. And as you open your eyes, I want you to think about that time that you were inspired. Recently, I was watching a documentary on a paraplegic that was inspired that every day they wanted to improve themselves by 1%. So I started thinking, 1%, what is 1%? So I thought about it and I was like, 1% of your day is roughly around 10 minutes. If you think about it, you are really awake, maybe 16 hours. So if you do the math, it comes out roughly to be around 10% of your day is about 1%. So out of that 1%, how do you make yourself better? How do you keep improving? Are you making the time? Are you making the time to continually improve yourself? And you may ask, why is it important to improve yourself? Well, today I want to talk to you about the fact that if you improve yourself, it's not only going to, obviously you're going to reap the benefits, but your organization, if you are positive, if you're feeling well, that's going to be reflective on the overall customer experience and how you're going to tackle your everyday scenarios that you come across. So I'm going to talk about how do I become 1% better each day? And I'm going to present to you questions you can ask yourself and give you some scenarios that you can think about how to improve yourself. So the first question is, how much time do you have? If you think about it, once again, do you have 10 minutes a day to make yourself better? Think about that paraplegic. Every day, the goal is to improve, become 1% better. So take out 10 minutes. Do you have 10 minutes? Then also think about, what are you trying to learn? What have you learned so far? Where do you need to pick up the path on? And then if you're trying to learn something, when you get stuck, do you spend more than 10 minutes trying to figure it out? Or do you reach out to a friend? Do you try to say, hey, I'm stuck, I need some help? Or do you just keep those wheels spinning? And sometimes, most of the time, I know in my case, that leads to a lot of energy that I could have dispelled somewhere else. And then if you're reaching out to that friend, if you decide, wait a minute, I am stuck, I'm going to reach out to a friend, that could lead to building a relationship. So then you have an opportunity to build a relationship and make it stronger, whatever situation that's in. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the last time you were stuck and you were working on something. It could have been today. It could have been moments before this presentation. And you start thinking, okay, I'm learning something, because the way I think about it is when you get stuck in something, that's a learning opportunity right there. And maybe you're just learning how to code, or maybe you're diving into a new UX philosophy that you didn't know anything about before. But then a few moments later, you get frustrated, whether that's you can't go any further, you don't have the answer, and you keep trying to figure it out, whether it's I'm building maybe a PowerPoint or a design. What do you do? Well, you've probably come to a point where you just can't work anymore and you are completely frustrated and you need to walk away. I want to tell you that per Pew Internet stats, 6% of the United States population actually is technically savvy. They actually are technically savvy. That's not a very high percentage. The challenge, though, is whether we're in an organization, wherever we are, we assume that everyone else has the same technical challenges or technical knowledge that we have. The reality is that it's very low. So what I'm trying to tell you, it's okay to reach out for help. If you're stuck and you're trying to learn something, it's okay to reach out for help because it's going to lead you to a new learning opportunity, a chance to build a relationship with a friend, someone that maybe it's a colleague that this is a great opportunity to reach out to them and build that relationship stronger, because relationships is what most business is rallied around. And the relationship with your customer is going to be reflected because you are now more knowledgeable as well. And this is a famous mountain climber. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually an understanding of strength. You know where your limitations are, and it's time to reach out. And I wanted to share a personal story with you that when you're thinking about this situation, how do you feel about asking a question that you don't know the answer to? A lot of us feel, a little embarrassed about that, but think of it as an opportunity to learn. This is an extreme story, but I was in scouting and we went to the upper Adirondacks and we were on a camping trip. And as we were hiking, a huge snowstorm rolled in and myself and my father were separated from our party because the snowstorm just came in and we had a huddle underneath a tree and we got lost from our party. And I actually suffered some mild hyperthermia. And during that situation, luckily we had a radio and we radioed the rest of the party and said, hey, we're, try to give our coordinates where we are. And hours later, they did discover us. But reaching out, I know that's an extreme example, reaching out in that moment, that was okay. We knew that we were in a situation where reaching out for help was not a weakness. It was, we needed assistance. And if you think about it, yes, that is a definite extreme case. But when you have an issue that you're experiencing, whether that's you're coding something, you're building a persona, whatever it is, whatever you're making, that experience, generally as humans, we want to figure it out on our own. Most of us, we feel as though, especially myself, that I'll figure it out on my own. I got it. But how long do you spend? And that's where I say, just like that 10 minutes, think about it. If in 10 minutes you're stuck on something, great, issue resolved. But if it takes you longer, you're going to come to a decision point. Is it urgent? Is this something urgent that I need to figure out on my own? And I know my use case of being out in the wild is a little extreme. But at that point, the idea was, yes, it's urgent. I'm going to reach out and ask a friend. In this case, we had a radio and we radioed our party and we can come and help you. Great, issue resolved. However, there are many cases where that issue is not resolved and it's urgent. Well, the reality is, whether it's a 911 call, there still is a circle here. Somebody's going to have to help you out if it's urgent. If you can't figure it out on your own, somebody has to help you out. So that circle is going to continually be endless. But the thing here is, though, there was a time limit that you set. You're not going to keep trying to go round and round and try to figure it out on yourself. Most of the situations that I've encountered have not been urgent. So if I'm trying to figure something out on my own and it's not urgent, I'll generally go and do some type of web search. Google still is the number one search engine out there. There are many others. For example, I've been using, I think it's like DuckDuckGo or something recently, been trying that out, but there's a lot out there. Have you done a web search? I had a colleague of mine that always had a Post-it note on their monitor that said, did you Google it? Because how many times throughout the day do you have some question that gets locked into your mind and you need the answer? So if it's not urgent, have you Googled it first? Why keep spinning your wheels going round and round trying to figure it out if there's already an answer out there? So if that has the answer, great, issue resolved. But if it doesn't, then this is where I would say I would reach out to a friend. I would say, okay, that way when I reach out to the friend, I could say, hey, look, I did some basic lookup. I couldn't find the information, and you can reach out to a friend. Now, the one thing I would say here is if you are continually reaching out to friends, try to mix up the friend that you're reaching out to. You always don't want to be asking the same friend over and over and over again. That's going to lead to some fatigue. But if your friend, for example, if you're stuck on something, why not, reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, whatever network you have, and say, hey, I've got a question. Why should I be continually spinning round and round on the same thing, expelling all this energy? Sometimes your friend might not have the answer. That happens. I actually then will go, okay, well, I guess I'll go check it out in a book. And this is my order. You may have a different order. Maybe you're more of a book person first. Then I'll go to a book. I've got a lot of books. I've recently been expanding my Kindle collection, and that's a good route to go. So maybe you can find the answer in a book. Great. If you still can't find the answer in a book, maybe there's a course, maybe there's a class somewhere. I've definitely continued to try to stay up and take some courses. Or maybe you could consider one of these professional groups. Darren mentioned the UXPA. There's many groups that are around, meetup groups that have many great sessions. I would throw those type of sessions in coursework. In my mind, it's an interactive session. They're showing you something. It's a forum. It's a way to learn something. So you can go there. So there's a lot of options here. I guess the key here is if you're going round and round and round, don't waste your time. Set a time limit. Set that 10 minutes and then use that 10 minutes. That's an opportunity to learn something. Maybe that's that 1%. Use the situation to leverage it to allow you to learn something new. And yeah, you might have to go around this round and round again. If that doesn't work, then you may have to go all the way back down the web search, ask a friend, book, course, and then maybe then it will turn into urgent and you have to go the other route as well. And you have to ask another friend, another type of friend that perhaps they're more of the 911 emergency friend. So I want you to keep in mind that my rule of thumb is if you can't figure something out in 10 minutes, don't spin your wheels. Go ahead and seek help. And there's many ways to do that. And this took me a long time to really merge this into my philosophy and the way I do things, because there is some stubborn pride there. Like, I'm going to figure this out on my own. And it's really fascinating that if you just try this one day, you set this 10-minute limit up for yourself, what will happen? And, and recently I discovered that when you do this, you are a lot happier. And this then does trickle down into many aspects of your life that, especially for customer service, is in the experience and the user experience, all these things. If you're continually not spinning your wheels, reaching out to friends, building that relationship, gathering information, taking that 1% of your day to learn more, you are happier. Believe it or not, you're happier in what you're doing. And that's going to impact the customer experience, the user experience. Everything is going to be reflected back in your design and the way you speak with customers. Even if you're a user researcher like myself, I have to go and interview a lot of individuals and run usability tests. Just knowing that I'm building a relationship while I'm running these sessions, and these individuals that I'm talking to, I may want to reach to them afterwards. So I look at every opportunity as a chance to build a relationship and try to turn it into the 1% challenge, some way to, change your life. And this whole discussion came out of a challenge that I had. I was running an internal training class, and I don't use WebEx. And Darren, you can probably go on and on and on about all these interfaces. And WebEx, I had the heck of a time of inviting other people that were not invited to the meeting, to this meeting, because you set up the meeting, it sends out a blast of here's everybody that is on it. And then someone says, oh, by the way, can I join? And the way the system was set up, that I just couldn't forward it. I had to add them through the system. So I'm sitting here and I'm staring at this interface. How do I invite other people? And, the class is about to start. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm staring at the interface. I'm clicking all around, and my 10 minutes were up. I said, okay, I got to reach out to a friend. So I messaged another trainer that I saw they were busy, but I said, hey, look, I'm just about to start this session. And they said, you know what? All you got to do, and you'll laugh. It's a UX issue. You got to click on this button. Then there's another button in there that you click on. Then below there's a text link. You see that text link right there? Click on that link. Now you can enter an email address. So I said, wait a minute. So you got to go 3 steps in to find it. So it definitely was not intuitive. I did find it, and I was able to invite people. The class was started a few minutes late, but I set up that 10-minute challenge, and I learned something new. I said, wait a minute, I just learned something new. Now I know where that feature is. I'm not going to forget this now. And then at the end of the session, something clicked. I said, wait a minute, maybe there's a presentation here, and voila, here comes the presentation. So it comes out that these opportunities can turn into, the chance for you to learn something new and build a relationship with someone else that maybe you didn't have as close a relationship with. And that's where this whole, flow chart came from, is this idea that don't get stuck in spinning your wheels more than that 10 minutes. Of course, if it's urgent, there's a whole other, channel that you need to do. It's like if you call your doctor's office, say, hang up, call 911. Don't try to set up an appointment. there's another way to handle that. But you'll see that if it's not urgent, which most that I've dealt with, then there's another way you can do that. And it leads to much you can learn from. And what was funny is, while I'm talking with the other trainer, they said, hey, have you heard about this book series, Edgar Sheehan? It's called Humble Inquiry. I was like, no. They're like, what? You've never heard of that? I thought you have every book. I thought you know about all this leadership stuff. I'm like, no, I never heard of this one. So I went and I grabbed it. It's a quick read. And there's so many good sayings in here, things that I learned, but look at the saying here. We do not think and talk about what we see. We see what we are able to think and talk about. It's so meta, but it's so true that we have our own lenses on. And when you reach out to a friend, they can actually help you see something that you're not seeing. So it allows you to break it down. So I checked out the book, and it gets into this whole philosophy of, are you asking questions in a humble manner? And it gives you this balance. It's like, if you're asking them in a humble manner, are your questions authentic? Are they coming from a real place? Are you actually trying to build a relationship, or is there something else behind that door? Are you staying curious? If you're curious, like, why? That way, then, even in a user interview or some type of usability session, I may know the answer, but if I'm asking the user why, you're going to get why they think it is. And I'm not going to project what I may already think. And it may change my perception based upon what they answer. And then empathy. We hear this is, you got to have empathy. But it is true, is if you are actually trying to step into their shoes and understand what they're feeling and thinking when you're talking about building this relationship, then it's going to continue to grow and flourish. So that humble nature is key. And that's what the whole book is about. And that's what started me thinking, is like, if you're frustrated, if you're at the end and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so stuck and I can't handle this anymore, draw that 10-minute rule and go, wait a minute, this could be an opportunity to build a relationship with someone that I don't have a strong relationship with. And then think about 10 minutes, 1%, because that's 1% of your day. So if you can learn something new, maybe you haven't learned anything new today. This is your chance. You're stuck. Reach out and don't spin your wheels. Go ahead and seek help. And what's going to happen is you're going to have that namaste moment. You're going to feel control, because now you're not sitting there spinning your wheels. You have other options. You can Google it. You can look for a course. But like I said, that opportunity to build a relationship with someone else, that's the opportunity. And then it's going to turn into everything else that you do, because if you're feeling better, then everyone else is going to feel better. It can impact that customer experience, that user experience, everything that you're going for every day. If you're not feeling well, it's definitely going to be reflected. If you have to run a usability session or talk to someone and you're not feeling fulfilled, it's going to be reflective. There was an old salesman technique that I learned a long time ago, is when you're on a call with someone, smile, because they know you're smiling. And that's the same thing here, is if you're not smiling on the other end, there's some sense there. And I think, to me, I found that 1%, taking that time out, will allow you to change and become better each day. So I'll bring you back to these 5 questions here. Ask yourself again, now that you've gone through this, how much time do you have? Do you have 10 minutes? Can you make 10 minutes in your day? Can you make 1%? To improve yourself? And then always gauge it on what you've learned so far. I mean, every day you're learning something new. That 10 minutes, maybe something else that you want to forge a relationship with, or learn something new that day. And that's where that 10 minutes comes in, is the humans, including myself, we want to figure it out ourselves. It's just how it is. It's just how we are. If you can then flip that and say, okay, I've spent too much time in this already. Stop. I'm going to go reach out to a friend now. Who would you reach out to? Think about it. Ask that. Who would you reach out to? Is it a coworker? Is it someone else on your team? Is it someone not on your team? You believe it or not, people love when you ask them for their help or their opinion. They love it. They're like, oh my gosh, I have so much knowledge. I'm so glad I can share it with you. And then that's going to roll right into building that relationship. So all these things are connected. You have the opportunity to do this. The question, though, is, are you up for the challenge? Are you up to take that 1% challenge and become better each day? It's going to be 10 minutes, but it's going to be 10 minutes that's going to be worthwhile. And I have to remind myself of this a lot. I think I've become better at I'm not going to keep spinning my wheels after 10 minutes, but reaching out to a friend, you see their status. Oh, it's busy. Well, then drop them an email. If it's not urgent, they'll get back to you. It doesn't have to be right there. And that's where it comes down to managing how you're doing all your work and working through the day. But I will tell you, this challenge, it has propelled me and really made me want to continually learn, because now I'm not as frustrated when I hit roadblocks. I see them as opportunities instead of something that's going to just ruin my day. So I wanted to thank you. And Darren did say at the top that I am an author. I did recently put out a book called Make Your Customers Dance, and it is tackling UX. And I do talk about having the opportunity to do research, and you can apply the same 1% challenge to that as you're going through. So if you want anything, follow that or check out the book. And I will now turn it over to questions. If there's any questions out there, Darren, I know I went through this 1% challenge, and it's probably pretty heavy for folks, but it's definitely changed the way I think about things.
Absolutely love the presentation, Mark. And I love that challenge. I've been doing that for years. I didn't call it that. There we go again, doing that thing again. Because I used to always, while we wait on questions to come in, folks, and don't forget, post questions you have for Mark in the Q&A area on Zoom. It is always one thing. I don't do it as, I don't use as much time anymore, but I would always spend 1 to 2 hours per week doing something to build my UX acumen, whether it's watch a video, whether it's go to a conference, whatever it meet, whatever it is, make sure you spend time building you. And it's part of that whole, like people say, oh, well, I went to a boot camp and now I know everything I need to know about UX. Oh, I graduated. And Marc's a new professor at Kent State, by the way. He just joined the ranks of the professors at Kent, so welcome there as well. But people say, I finished my program at Kent, and now I'm done. No, you're not. It's no matter where you went, it's always about continued education. So when I think about the 1% challenge, this is part of it. And I mean, now I do it without thinking about it. But I can't tell you how much time I spend over the week now, but it used to be, okay, here's an hour. Okay, here's another hour. Now I just do it. I might listen to podcasts like half the day. So
it's a continual muscle. And I think that's the challenge is with this profession is just because you received a certificate doesn't mean, yep, wipe my hands clean. I'm all done now. You have to keep feeding it, and to lose sight of it, carving that time out. I mean, I have a calendar as well. I'll say, I got to carve this time out, but then all of a sudden it gets filled up with project work, and then you're searching to try to push yourself. So that's why I just said, well, I'm going to merge it into what I do. That way I have no excuse, is that because every one of us has challenges throughout the day. Well, then, don't let it discourage you.
Right. Yeah, and it's, I mean, we can't be lazy about it. I think it's, oh God, of course, people always call when doing this kind of stuff.
Of course.
It's fun. It's an adventure.
It is.
UX is an adventure. I've told the stories before about I was working at a creative agency when the iPhone came out. Everything we did before that was all websites and a little bit of interactive TV. That was it. And then all of a sudden, now we've got to deal with this phone. We designed for the phone. Well, it's an opportunity. And so today, AR and VR. I think Elijah, the AR, VR, and now the IVR stuff is blowing up. Or which it should have been a long time ago, but we've been saying for years. Press one, and you sneeze, and then you end up going somewhere. Somebody gonna find you.
I didn't mean that.
So yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. If we accept that challenge, there's just so many things we can do to better ourselves. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, but even the more we build our acumen, the better we'll be at identifying and validating sources that we can use. I actually talked about this on my podcast one day about the importance of having a PLN, which is another way to do the 1% challenge. Another way to formalize. So, what resources can you tap into to make yourself better? And how frequently will you visit those resources, and making it a point to do that? Because we got to keep getting better. We got to keep meeting other UX professionals is great, because you get to take in their perspectives. We always make each other think about things differently.
Right. Yeah. And I think that was the challenge, not to make a bad, a pun about it, but we all learn differently. So my order of the way things work may be different than the way, everyone else thinks, but that's where it comes in. It's like for a while there, before the pandemic, I was listening to a lot of podcasts. Well, because I was doing driving. Now, for some reason, I can't listen to podcasts. So I'm doing more Kindle reading. So there's just something, everyone's different, but that's just carving out the time, I think, is the first part. And then what you do with it is the next part. But then, like you said, reach out to those resources. They're there. I mean, they're waiting for you. They love sharing information.
Yes. You just made me think about another thing. I don't know if people are, how much people are doing this, but Audible. Yeah. Audiobooks. A lot of UX materials available on audiobook. And it's like listening to a podcast. You can just tap in, and you might hear one thing.
That's all it takes.
Helps you to achieve that 1%. I love the example about the guy, the paraplegic athlete.
Yeah.
You know, and you could even see something like that on happenstance. Now you got inroads to your 1%.
Mhm.
And that 1% really makes a lot of impact when other people get to partake of it. So it's huge.
Yeah, it's going to take some work, but you're going to reap the benefits more than you know, and then that's how that
Yeah.
trickles back to everything else that's going to come from your your mouth.
Yes, absolutely. And one question did just come in here from Aditya. Says, can you share a specific story of how you were able to overcome the fear, intimidation of asking someone for help?
Sure. Yeah, I'll bring this one up. This is a couple years ago, but so you may think that you're stuck and you're sitting at your machine, and there was a VP at the company that was, he was always buttoned up, sharp, always walking through, he would close his door, he was always busy. And this one day I was walking through the cafeteria and I just happened stance to be right behind him. And I said, "Hey, how's it going?" "Pretty good." And we both then went to the salad bar. We both basically made the same salad. I was like, "This is really getting really weird." you know and then we went down the same way. I'm like, "This is getting weirder." So I just asked him as he's going, I said, "Hey, would you ever mind if I just swung by your office sometime and asked you questions?" In his face, like, I thought he was going to be like, "No way." He's like, you know that would be great. I was like, "Okay, when's a good time?" And he's like, "I don't know, right around now, actually." I said, "Well, could I come down now?" He's like, "Sure." So I followed him down to his office and I sat down in the chair, and he closed the door, and all these people were walking by like, "Why is Marc in there? That's really weird. Like, that's like the VP of the company." But I was asking him some specific questions I had on research and if he ever saw it out in the field. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I saw that years ago." And so I think a lot of it just comes down to, I mean, obviously there's got to be an opportunity. I mean, there's some there's you got to have some kind of loose connection. Maybe on LinkedIn, for example, they have that you're connected to them. Maybe they can introduce you. I don't know if that feature is there anymore. I used to use that back in the day, but if you even just look at your network and maybe there's someone you want to ask a question to, see if someone can do that for you, and you would be amazed by just dropping a quick question, by that soft, someone introducing you over, or just like I said, if you bump into somebody. I mean, obviously with the pandemic, things are starting to change and that opportunity may happen more often, but with virtually, just simply dropping someone a message, "Hey, I'm a fan, I saw this," and you just be amazed by that first quick question, how most of the time people say, "Sure." But you have to get to the point though quickly. That's the key though too, is follow that pyramid principle, was just the facts. Get to it quick, because people definitely want to jump to that, and then maybe that will help open it up.
Right, right. When you said that, you made me think about how a lot of times, I've been there too. People can't believe I'm actually shy. I know people are already laughing. You're laughing. I'm actually shy. I speak out of, I explain it as speaking out of necessity. And so I can really relate to the question, because I mean, a lot of times you think you can't ask somebody something. And so
Yes.
we pretty much create our own boundary.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fence there. It's like we create an invisible cognitive fence. And
Yes.
so we assume we can't approach somebody. And you would not believe how many people feel like they can't approach me. And then when they finally do, and then now the shoe is on the other foot. And as
Right.
soon as they start talking to me, they go, and they've come out and say, "I can't believe how easy you were to talk to. I can't believe how much you help. I thought you were this. I thought you were that." Well, and I laugh again. I laugh, and and that's the end of it. So a lot of times we think somebody we can't approach them. Try, do it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Do
And
it
what's
anyway.
fast? Yeah. And I laugh because you were laughing, because I felt the it's kind of like you see someone yawn, you want to yawn. But it was fascinating, working with that potential VP. Then it was like common practice for me, if I saw his door open, it was around lunchtime, I said, "Hey, is this a good time?" I would just drop in there. And then over the years, there were some key nuggets of things that I discovered that no one else knew, going into some of these projects. And it was because, most VPs, they have been on the front line and they've seen things that you haven't seen. So, sharing some of that knowledge with you, once again, it was a learning opportunity. And I would always, it's funny is thinking back at it, Darren, when I was in there, I always be cognizant of time. I'm like, okay, I'm in here 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then I would start like standing up and like, okay, I'm going to get going now. Like I didn't want to stay in there too long because I knew, eventually his phone was going to ring or someone was going to walk in. And I think that's another thing too, is when you're reaching out to people, really be respectful of time. I mean, something's happening there, but really say, hey, if you got 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and stick to it. Because that's where, unless they say, oh yeah, sure, I can keep going. But I think that's the other challenge there. And then that will follow up to do it again, because you may have another question in the future.
Yep.
It's a simple thing, but it
gets complex because of the way we feel. Remembering being in that position and how you feel when you have that anxiety, what that fear does. And it does, it shuts you down. But one day, when I felt like that in the past, when I didn't want to approach somebody, I just made myself do it.
Yep.
And then it just dissipated. And you wonder, and then when the whole thing is over, you sit there going, why in the world did I feel that way? That was
you're like, what was I thinking? But of course, there's always that one where you're like, yep, that's what I thought. But it will happen to you, but it's far and few, it's very low. I mean, it's happened to me a couple of times where I'm like, okay, that didn't turn out, but doesn't mean I'm not going to try it again next time.
Right. So, and then don't be too hard on, I would say, don't be too hard on yourself. The person who's asking the question, you'll build up, you'll build up confidence to do it. But that first time, take the plunge, get over that first one, it'll get easier going forward.
Yeah. And then go into it with your questions too. That also helps us too. Like, if you're going to go in, you better ask some questions, write them down. If you have to. You don't want to be sitting there like when you finally do get in there, like, I had a question, I can't remember now. I've done that. Don't do that.
But we want to thank you, Marc. We went a few minutes over.
Oh, I didn't know that. Great. Thank you.
You did not. I extended with the Q&A, but we need to get, some folks will need extra time for restroom breaks. Thank you, Marc, for coming out and speaking today and sharing. And we have a break now till the top of the hour. And then our third speaker for the day will be along, and that will be Ritvij Gautam will be along at the top of the hour. So will everybody enjoy your break, and we will see you again in roughly 22 minutes.